her inheritance to live on, and the other half she invested in a dilapidated old storefront on the corner of Wyndham and Main in downtown Ipswich, Pennsylvania. Almost as handy with a hammer as she was with a rolling pin, Polly converted the upstairs into a cozy little apartment. Downstairs she built the pie shop she had always dreamed of having. It wasn't much to look at, just a big room with a long wooden counter, a couple of tin pie safes, and a second-hand oven she'd picked up at an auction. But as far as Polly was concerned, the place was perfect. Being a humble person, she gave her pie shop a humble name: Pie. When Pie first opened its doors in 1941, Alice Anderson hadn't even been born yet. But people in Ipswich loved to tell the story, so she'd heard it a million times. The night before the opening, Polly was too excited to sleep. Finally, she gave up, got dressed, and went downstairs to the shop. While everyone else in town was still snoring in bed, Polly tied on her favorite apron, leopard print, of course, and began to bake. By the time dawn spread its buttery light across the morning sky, there was a row of beautiful pies cooling on the counter and a crowd of people outside the door waiting to buy them. Polly had put a great deal of thought into the pies she made that morning. She wanted to make sure there was something for everyone. For the berry enthusiast, she made triple berry pies filled with a medley of ripe blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. For the more adventurous, she created green tomato and Concord grape pies. Of course, there were traditional pies like cherry, apple, and rhubarb with golden top crusts spread like quilts over the sweet warm fillings, and cream pies galore: chocolate, coconut, and banana. Polly even managed to come up with something for the pie lover worried about an expanding waistline: a refreshingly tart, low-calorie buttermilk pie, sprinkled with fresh nutmeg. The citizens of Ipswich had been sampling Polly Portman's pies at church picnics and 4-H fairs for years, so they were tickled pink that she had finally opened a shop of her own. Their delight, however, quickly turned to concern when they discovered Polly wasn't planning to sell the pies she made in her shop. She was planning to give them away. "Why on earth would I charge people money for something that brings me so much pleasure?" Polly asked Reverend Flowers when he stopped by the shop one day to pay her a visit. "How else do you expect to stay in business, my dear?" he responded, a touch of worry creasing his brow. "You of all people should know the answer to that," Polly laughed, then handed the Reverend a sour cherry pie, which she happened to know was his favorite, and sent him on his way. At first, people couldn't decide what to do about Polly's pie shop. As much as they loved her pies, nobody was comfortable with the idea of getting one for free. So when no amount of coaxing could convince Polly to accept money for her pies, her friends and neighbors came up with an idea for another way to pay her. Every morning when Polly came downstairs to the shop, she would find an assortment of fresh ingredients waiting for her on the doorstep. One day there might be a basket of lemons and 3 dozen eggs, the next day a bushel of apples, a pot of fresh cream, and a giant sack of flour. Whatever people brought her, Polly would put to good use. And in no time at all, every surface in the shop would be covered with delicious fruit pies bursting at the seams with sweet juice, delicate silk pies sprinkled with curls of milk chocolate, chess pies with caramelized cornmeal tops, and custard pies piled so high with whipped cream it looked like they had snowdrifts sitting on top of them. Word of Polly Portman's remarkable pie shop spread when a reporter from the Ipsy News wrote an article about it. The Associated Press picked up the story, and pretty soon people from all over the country were flocking to the corner of Wyndham and Main to experience pie for themselves. They came bearing raspberries from Oregon, sugarcane from Louisiana, pecans from Texas, and cherries from Michigan. Day after day, people flocked to the shop, and whatever they brought with them, Polly would turn into pies. Alice came along in March of 1945. She was the apple of her Aunt Polly's eye. The two of them spent a great deal of time together at the pie shop. When Alice was a toddler, Polly would sit her on the tall red stool, the very same stool Polly had sat on as a child, and give Alice a lump of pie dough to play with while she baked.